us now to provide some analysis is our political expert, Brian Sobel. Brian, the president spent a lot of time, the most time tonight, talking about what he calls a crisis on our border and his desire for a border wall, along with other security measures. Was he effective, and did he leave the door open a little bit when he said, I'm willing to compromise?
Yes, I think he made the case for border security. And as you point out, it was the biggest chunk of his speech by far, as a matter of fact. We will see over the coming days whether Democrats respond to his, again, morphing this concrete wall into a wall you could see through and maybe has other elements to it.
Brian, a big theme tonight was unity. President Trump started his address saying, quote, I stand here ready to work with you and govern not as two parties, but as one nation. Was his call for unity tonight effective?
It was when he called for unity, and then he would slip into these areas where he, as we heard Jenna talk about, take jabs at Democrats. So it was like the carrot and stick approach, and I'd hand a carrot and then, whack the Democrats.
What about the idea, he did talk about infrastructure and how important it is to have infrastructure in the United States, to fix our infrastructure. It seems to me that if there's one issue that the two sides can come together on, it would be infrastructure.
Well, and it begs the question why, when the president was first elected, infrastructure wasn't the very first thing to work on. Everybody can agree that the infrastructure of America has issues and needs to be fixed, and would agree on funding for that. We're still talking about it 2 years later, Frank, and in the mix are all these other major issues we're dealing with.
The Democratic response was by Stacey Abrams, considered by many as a rising star in the Democratic Party, narrowly lost the race for governor of Georgia last year. Your thoughts on her response and the view of where Democrats think their party is headed compared to what the president had to say?
Well, just as I believe the president's speech was not soaring and kind of bounced around way too much, I thought the Abrams speech started off with way too much content about her and not enough about what the Democrats are going to do to actually change things for the next election. I mean, the key thing right now for Democrats is the messaging. Well, how are we different from Republicans? I thought that opportunity was squandered. She did touch on it, but the beginning of the speech was her. The ending of the speech was essentially her.
In other words, what you're saying here is that Democrats need to talk more about what they're for and not what they're against? I've
said for the longest time, if the Democrats' campaign is we don't like that guy in the White House, that will not be enough. Because what they have to have is a series of messages that gives the American people hope that if you elect a Democrat, things are going to change and change for the better.
And just before we let go, the overall term of tonight's address, do you think a lot of people watching tonight focus more on the president's manner versus his performance?
Well, it was different. He was softer spoken in many respects. Did try to reach across the aisle, if we want to use that phrase, to make points. But again, the speech kind of ebbed and flowed in odd ways at times during the speech.
In the end, will the speech make any difference? Does the State of the Union or the Democratic response make any difference?
Well, the problem with the State of the Union is that it is filled with platitudes and things that require legislation. And people coming together. And we'll see over the next few days whether anything he proposed stands a chance in the House and Senate.
All right, Brian Sobel, thanks for joining us tonight.
You're very welcome.